My name is Rosalind Mercer, and on the night I turned 70, my son gave me moving boxes with a bow on them. They were wrapped beautifully. I'll give my daughter-in-law that. Vanessa wraps like a department store. 6 flattened cardboard boxes, tied with the biggest red bow I have ever seen, presented at my own dining table, while 14 guests held their little plates of cake and watched. We found you a beautiful 1-bedroom at Silver Meadows, my son said, smiling like he was handing me keys to a convertible. It's time to downsize, Mom. We already booked you a tour for Tuesday. And his wife, who had spent the party walking through my house with her phone out, added sweet as frosting. I already measured the sewing room. I mean, the craft room. It's going to be perfect. 14 guests. Not one of them said a word. The only sound in my dining room was the little hiss of 2 wax numbers, a 7 and a 0, still burning on top of my birthday cake. I set my cake fork down very gently. I looked at those 2 candles, and I did what you're supposed to do at a birthday. I made a wish, a very specific one. Then I blew them out, and everybody clapped, because everybody thought that meant yes. 9 days later, my son sat at my kitchen table, white as buttercream, staring at 11 pages he had signed 6 years ago and never once read. What happened in that hour cost his wife her renovation plans, cost him every comfortable assumption he'd been living inside, and gave me back the one thing I'd been missing since my husband died: the truth about my own family, in writing. But 9 days is 9 chapters, and I'm skipping 8 of them. Welcome back to 65 and Sunny, where the woman they're packing up is usually the one holding the keys. Stick around for the envelopes. You'll want to see which one he chose. Leave a comment as you go, and subscribe if stories like mine are your cup of tea. Now, who am I? That question turns out to be the whole story, so let's answer it properly. I've spent 35 years in property management here in Western Michigan, where a roof either respects winter or teaches you a lesson about it. Not the glamorous kind, the kind with a pager on your nightstand and a plunger in your trunk. My husband Harold was a plumber with good hands and better patience, and in 1989 we took our savings, his overtime, and a loan officer's reluctant blessing, and we bought a sagging duplex on Fenwick Street that smelled like 40 years of other people's cooking. We fixed it. We rented it. We didn't take a vacation for 6 years. And we bought the next one. By the time Harold died, 13 months before that birthday party, Cedargate Properties LLC owned 23 doors in this county. 23 families sleep under roofs that Harold and I patched with our own 4 hands. I know every furnace by its first name. Here is what 35 years of leases teaches you. Paper is honest in a way people can't manage. People remember what suits them. Paper remembers what happened. In 35 years, I have evicted exactly 3 tenants, 3 out of hundreds. And I can tell you every detail of every one, because you don't forget the Times paper had to speak louder than kindness. I read leases the way other women read mysteries. In bed, with a pen. The pen matters, so I'll tell you about it. Green Waterman Fountain Pen, 1989. A gift from Harold the day we signed for Fenwick Street. Every signature that builds us, Roz, comes out of this pen. Every lease Cedargate has ever signed, every single one, 35 years of them, carries ink from that pen. It sits in a cup on my hallway desk next to a brass cabinet with 23 numbered hooks, one key for every door we own. Hook number 7 is a white colonial on Birchwood Lane. Black shutters, maple in the yard, the prettiest thing we ever bought. Harold loved that house like a third child. He repiped it himself the winter we closed on it, whistling the whole time. 6 years ago, hook number 7 became my son's house, and that sentence, the way I just said it, the way everyone in my family learned to say it, is exactly where all the trouble started, because it isn't his house. It never was. But I'm going to tell it in order, the way the paper remembers it, and not the way my daughter-in-law tells it, because one of those two versions has signatures on it. 6 years ago, my son Craig and his wife came to Sunday dinner with a problem. They'd sold their starter home at the top of the market, Vanessa's idea, and to be fair, a shrewd one. But the house they'd meant to buy fell through. And the ones left were, in Vanessa's words, beneath where we're headed. They needed somewhere to land, a year, maybe 2, while they found the right thing. Number 7 on Birchwood had just come vacant. My tenants of 11 years had retired to Arizona, and I hadn't listed it yet because I was still repainting the porch railings the exact green Harold liked. Harold was alive then. He heard them out, looked at me across the table, and I already knew. The prettiest house we owned for the boy, of course. Family rate, Harold said, $400 a month. Cover the taxes, more or less. $400 a month. I want you to keep that number where you can see it, because market rent on that colonial, and I set market rents in this county, it is literally my job, was $1,250 then, and it's higher now. But here's the part of the dinner nobody else remembers, because it suited them to forget it. After the hugging, I went to my hallway desk, and I came back with a lease. Vanessa laughed. She thought it was a joke. A lease? For family? Especially for family, I said. Paper is how you love people without arguing, sweetheart. The insurance requires it, the LLC requires it, and 35 years of watching families come apart over handshakes requires it. Craig signed it at my kitchen table with the Lions game on in the other room. And losing, which tells you the season. 11 pages. My boy initialed every one of them the way he's done everything since he was small. Fast, cheerful, eyes already on the next thing. He signed where the tabs pointed. He did not read one line. I remember Harold watching him do it with a look I couldn't name at the time. I can name it now. It was worry, wearing its Sunday clothes. Green pen. Hook 7. February. That's what the paper remembers. Now let me tell you what the family chose to remember instead, because the two versions drifted apart a little more every year, like a boat with a soft knot. Year 1, it was, Craig's renting the Birchwood place from his folks. True enough. Year 2, after Vanessa repainted and put in raised garden beds, lovely ones, it became Craig and Vanessa's house on Birchwood. Year 3, I heard Vanessa's mother at Thanksgiving call it the house Harold set aside for Craig. Set aside. And by the time Harold died, 13 months ago, the story in every mouth but mine was a settled, comfortable thing. The Birchwood house was Craig's inheritance, already given, practically deeded, a done deal in everything but boring old paperwork. And the $400 a month, that had quietly become, in the family telling, Craig covering the costs, a favor he was doing me, keeping the old place occupied. I heard all of it. I heard it at holidays and christenings, in little sideways sentences, and I want to be honest with you about why I let it breathe. Because it's the part of this story where I have to hand myself the bill. Grief makes you cheap about arguments. After Harold died, I had exactly enough strength each day to run 23 doors, and none left over to chase a story through my own family, correcting it at every table. It felt harmless. Vanity with a zip code. Let them say Craig's house. The deed knew better. The lease knew better. I told myself paper doesn't need defending. Paper doesn't, but people do, from what unchecked stories teach them they're entitled to. I let my family believe a fiction because correcting it was tiring. And fictions, left alone, don't just sit there. They compound, like interest. And 13 months after we buried Harold, the interest came due at my own birthday party. The party was Vanessa's production. I should have read that omen better. She volunteered my house, my table, my wonderful bones. She talks about my house the way you'd talk about a promising fixer-upper. And she invited 14 people, and she did it all beautifully, because whatever else I say about Vanessa, the woman can stage an occasion. I spent my own party watching her fall in love with my house out loud. She walked guests through it like a docent. Look at this molding. You can't get this anymore. This landing, original. It photographs unbelievably. At one point, I passed the sewing room, my sewing room, the little back bedroom where I've pieced quilts for 30 years, where my mother's singer sits under the window, because that's where the light lands at 2 in the afternoon, and Vanessa was standing in the doorway with her phone held up, running one of those measuring apps along the wall, and she said to her sister, not seeing me, 12 by 14. My craft table fits with room for the ribbon wall. I'd take the machine out, obviously. It's very grandma. It's very grandma, in my house, at my birthday, standing in the one room in the world that is entirely mine. I said nothing. I carried the coffee out. 35 years of tenants teaches you the difference between a moment and a pattern. And I was starting to see the pattern, but I still didn't know the size of it. I thought Vanessa wanted my sewing room the way she wants everything pretty, theoretically on a mood board someday. Then came the cake and the candles and the toast, and I found out someday had a booked appointment. Craig stood up with his glass and gave a speech about me. It started sweetly, my casseroles, my stubbornness, the time I plunged a tenant's toilet in a cocktail dress on New Year's Eve. People laughed. I laughed. And then the speech turned, so smoothly, I believe Vanessa wrote it, into what I can only call a real estate intervention. Mom, you rattle around in this big place, all these stairs. Dad wouldn't want you shoveling that driveway. We worry, Mom. 14 guests nodding along to a eulogy for a woman who was sitting right there holding cake. And then the boxes came out with their beautiful bow, and my son said the sentence, I've already told you, the one with the brochure attached, Silver Meadows, a luxury senior community, 1 bedroom, tour booked Tuesday at 10, will drive you. And Vanessa's little addendum about my sewing room, which she had, I now understood, measured not theoretically, not someday, but for a moving truck. Because that was the full plan, friends. And it came out in pieces over that dessert, like a confession nobody thought was a confession. I would take the 1 bedroom at Silver Meadows. They would keep the family home going. My house, this house, because it was too much for one person and perfect for the kids. And the Birchwood Colonial, their house. Vanessa was already talking to a contractor about opening up the kitchen, since we'll finally own it outright once everything's settled. Once everything's settled. At a 70th birthday party, in front of 14 witnesses, my family laid out the whole estate plan. Mine, apparently, was the only signature nobody thought to ask for. I want to stop here, on the moment everyone always asks about. Rosalind, how did you sit there? The boxes on the table, the brochure by the cake, the sewing room measured, 14 faces waiting for you to be gracious. How did you not stand up and burn the room down? I'll tell you exactly how, because it wasn't weakness and it wasn't grace. It was 35 years of professional habit. Standing in that dining room, I was holding 3 separate certainties. 1, nothing they had announced could actually happen. Not one plank of it. I knew what the paper said, and they plainly didn't, and no amount of cakeside confidence changes a recorded deed. I was the only person in the room who knew that the entire plan was standing on a floor that didn't exist. There is a certain deep calm in that, I won't lie to you. 2, a birthday party is a terrible place to read a lease. I have delivered hard paperwork hundreds of times in my life, and you learn this early. Never serve papers on a crowd. Crowds take sides, and the truth gets loud and stupid. The truth works best across a kitchen table, in the morning, with coffee, 1 page at a time. And 3, the one that hurt. I needed to know how far it went. Was this Vanessa's mood board wearing my son's voice? Or did Craig, my Craig, Harold's boy, genuinely believe he owned that house and was owed this one? A mother has to know the difference between a son who's being steered and a son who's steering. If I flipped the table that night, I'd never find out. If I stayed quiet 9 more days, the pattern would finish showing itself. Patterns always finish the sentence. So I looked at my candles, the 7 and the 0, and I made my wish. I'll tell you what it was at the end. I keep my promises. And I blew them out, and I let 14 people believe the clapping settled it. If you have ever sat at a table while people you love planned your life over your head, using words like "we worry" to mean "we want," then you already know what my calm was made of, and the next part belongs to you as much as to me. The turn starts here, and those 11 pages are about to open, so don't wander off. The morning after the party, I did not call a lawyer in a fury. I did my Meyer run at 7 like every Sunday, because a woman's routines are a load-bearing wall, and then I came home and got to work. I did what I have done every working morning for 35 years. I pulled a file number 7, Birchwood Lane, from the oak cabinet in my hallway office. I made a pot of coffee. I put on my reading glasses. I uncapped Harold's green pen for the margins, and I read my son's lease the way I'd read any tenant's. Start to finish, no skipping. The way I wish to God more people read the things they sign. And there it all was, in the boring, patient language Harold and I paid our attorney to standardize back in 1998. 11 pages. Owner, Cedar Gate Properties, LLC. Tenant, Craig H. Mercer. Term, 12 months, converting thereafter to month to month. Rent, $400, designated below-market family accommodation, revisable at owner's discretion with 60 days' notice. Occupancy limited to named tenant and immediate household. No right of purchase, no right of first refusal, no equity accruing, nothing inheritable. Termination by owner with 60 days written notice after conversion to month. 6 years converting quietly, month by month, like a heart beating in a drawer. Craig's signature on page 11, fast and cheerful. His initials on every page, including page 6, where the family rate clause sits. And below his name, in ink from the pen in my hand, 2 witnesses, mine and Harold's. I sat with my husband's signature for a while that morning. I traced it once with my thumb, the way you do, and I'll tell you what I heard in it. Plain as speech. Paper is how you love people without arguing, Roz. He hadn't insisted on that lease to protect the house from our boy. He'd insisted on it to protect the truth from what families do to it. Harold had seen all the way down the road I was only now standing on. The man witnessed his own son's signature, so that 13 years, or 6 years, or 100 years later, nobody, however loud, however certain, however good at rapping, could rewrite what was given into what was owed. So that was Monday, paper in order. Now I still had a question that paper couldn't answer. How far did this go, and who was driving? I didn't have to wait long. The pattern, as I told you, always finishes showing itself. Over the next week, it came in 3 phone calls. The first call came Wednesday, from Priya Nair. Priya sells real estate now. 19 years ago, she was my tenant in the Fenwick duplex, a nursing student with a baby and a deposit I quietly never cashed. She has never forgotten it, which tells you what kind of person she is. Mrs. Mercer, she said, careful as a nurse with a needle. I got an odd request yesterday, and you didn't hear this from me. A woman asked me to run comps on your house, Maple Street. She wants a market analysis, and she asked how fast it could list, hypothetically. She said the family's preparing for a transition. A pause. Mrs. Mercer, it was your daughter-in-law. She gave your address like she owned it. Preparing for a transition. My house. Comps ordered 9 days after my birthday cake, 4 days after the bow. Thank you, Priya, I said, steady. Run the comps. Take her meeting. Tell me everything and be wonderful at your job. Because here's the thing, 35 years of difficult tenants teaches you, never interrupt someone who is busy documenting themselves. Vanessa wanted paper on my house? Let there be paper. Every request she made was one more page in a file she didn't know existed, and I am very good at files. The second call came Friday evening, and it was the one that decided how much mercy this story would end with. It was my granddaughter, Emma, 9 years old, Craig's eldest, whispering on the phone she is not supposed to use after 8. Grandma, Mom says when you move to the old people hotel, we're getting your house, and I get the big bedroom. My heart did what a heart's do. And then my girl said, but I told her the sewing room is yours. It has your smell in it. I told her we should just visit you more if the house is too big. Mom said I don't understand grown-up things. A small, fierce pause. I understand some grown-up things. You understand the very best ones, Ladybug, I told her. Don't you worry about the sewing room. Grandma has it handled. Go put the phone back. I sat in my kitchen after that call for a long time. 2 generations in that one phone. A mother teaching her daughter that Grandma's life was a vacancy coming onto the market. and a 9-year-old sight unseen, teaching it right back that a room can belong to a person the way a person belongs to a family. They tell you everything, children. They're the only witnesses in a family who haven't learned what to forget. Between those calls, 2 more things happened that week, and I want you to have both of them, because they're the 2 halves of how I decided to handle everything that came after. The first was the group text. Saturday morning, Vanessa sent an update to what turned out to be 19 members of this family. Cousins, in-laws, my late husband's poker friends' wives, people I see twice a year over casseroles. My sister Dee forwarded it to me within the hour, with her own commentary attached, most of which I can't repeat on a family channel. Family update on Mom M, it began. Mom M. As some of you heard at the party, we're beginning the process of transitioning Rosalind into a beautiful senior community where she'll be safe and social. She's still processing the change. There may be some resistance. It's very normal at her age. So if she brings it up, please just be supportive of the plan. We're handling all the details. She's so lucky to have family around her. Read that twice, the way I did. There may be some resistance. It's very normal at her age. Please be supportive of the plan. In one paragraph, my daughter-in-law had done to me what she'd done to the Birchwood house, renamed the ownership. Any objection I might raise to the disposal of my own home, my own rooms, my own mornings, had been pre-labeled for 19 relatives as a symptom. She wasn't arguing with me. She was inoculating the jury against me. You can't fight that with volume, friends. Raise your voice against a story like that, and you become its evidence. But paper, as I keep telling you, doesn't mind being quiet. I asked Dee to say nothing, save everything, and be patient. The same instructions I gave Priya. By Tuesday, I would answer that group text, not with a text, with a notarized lease and a certified deed, working their way through 19 phones on pure family gossip, which in a clan this size moves faster than certified mail anyway. The second thing that happened that week is one nobody in my family knows about, and you're hearing it before they ever will. Friday morning, I drove to Silver Meadows myself, alone, unannounced. I know, but hear me out. I have never in 35 years priced a property off someone else's description, and I wasn't about to start with my own future. If my family was going to build a plan around a brochure, I intended to be the only person at that table who had actually walked the halls. So I toured it the way I tour everything. I checked the water pressure in the model unit. Excellent. I asked the maintenance man, not the saleswoman, how fast work orders get closed. Honest answer. Respectable number. I noted the boiler's age on my way past the utility corridor, because you can take the woman out of property management, but you cannot make her stop reading boilers. And in the community room, I lost 45 minutes to a card table of sharp-eyed women captained by one Dot Kowalczyk, 84, retired court clerk, who plays bridge like an audit and laughed at my jokes in all the right places. And here is the truth I carried out of that building, and it matters more than anything else in this story. It's a lovely place, genuinely, bright, warm, well-run, for the right person, in the right season, walking in on her own 2 feet, holding her own pen. What made my skin go cold was never Silver Meadows. It was the bow on the boxes. The tour booked in my name by other hands. A good room chosen for you is a sentence. The same room chosen by you is an address. The entire difference, the whole of it, friends, is whose signature is on the decision. I took a brochure of my own from the nice saleswoman, wrote Thursdays on the corner in green ink, and put it in my glove box. Remember, it's there. It comes back at the end. The third call was my son, Sunday, 1 week after the party, and this call mattered because it answered my question, the steering or steered question, in a way that broke my heart in one place and mended it in another. Mom, hey, so Tuesday didn't work, I know, but Silver Meadows had a cancellation Thursday, and Van thinks if we get your place staged by fall. He caught himself. Even he heard it. I mean, if you decide, it's your decision, obviously. It's just, everyone kind of feels like it's decided. And honestly, Mom, it'd help us out. With the kids and the schools, and Van's already promised her mother the guest room for the holidays. At Maple Street. At your place. There it was. All of it. Not malice. I want to be fair to my son the way I was fair to his father's memory. Craig was not scheming. Craig was floating. The way he has floated his whole comfortable life, signing where the tabs point, letting stronger currents decide, assuming the water would always be warm because for 42 years, in every current his mother and father ever made, it had been. His wife had built a plan out of my life, and my boy's contribution was to not read it, just like the lease. My son doesn't steal. He initials. That I could work with. A schemer you cut off, a floater you teach to swim, one cold bucket of truth at a time. Thursday's fine, sweetheart, I said. But before any tours, come to my kitchen table Tuesday morning, 9 o'clock. You and Vanessa both. There are some family papers we need to go over. Estate things. Since everyone feels like it's decided, let's decide it properly. You have never heard a man agree so fast to his own ambush. Estate things. He heard inheritance. I heard inventory. We were both right. Monday, I prepared, and I'll show you my work, because the preparation is the message in this trade. Into my leather folder, in order, the recorded deed to Birchwood Lane, Cedargate Properties, LLC, sole member Rosalind Mercer, certified copy, because certified copies end conversations. The lease, all 11 pages, signature side flagged with one green tab, a one-page ledger I typed myself, the arithmetic of a family rate, market rent minus 472 months, itemized year by year, totaled at the bottom, 118,400, documented, dated, decided, not billed. You'll see why. Then the deed to Maple Street, my house, and the copy of my trust, freshly reviewed that afternoon by Miriam Katz, my attorney of 20 years, who read the whole situation in about 90 seconds and said only, Rosalind, the envelopes? Because Miriam knows me. Yes, the envelopes. 2 of them, cream-colored, marked A and B in green ink, sitting on top of everything else in the folder, like the last 2 chocolates in the box. What was in them, you'll know when Craig knew. And one more thing went in the folder, and I want you to know it was Miriam's idea, and I resisted it, and she was right. The Silver Meadows brochure. Bring their own paper, Roz, she said. Always make them look at their own paper. Tuesday morning, I set my kitchen table the way I'd set it 6 years before. The last time Birchwood Lane changed hands across it. Coffee, the good cups, Harold's green pen in its place by my right hand, and Marisol Ochoa, my office manager of 22 years, who has notarized half the paper in my adult life, at the end of the table with her stamp and her seal and her particular talent for radiating procedure. Nothing in the world calms a room or frightens it, quite like a notary who won't stop smiling. At 9:04, my son and his wife came through my kitchen door. Vanessa carrying, I am not inventing this, fabric swatches for the curtains in her future craft room. She set them on my counter the way a flag gets planted. If you've ever watched someone measure your life for their curtains, stay with me. The next part is the reason you clicked, and it was worth the wait. And if this channel's stories have started to feel like your own kitchen, drop a comment and subscribe. Now. The folder opens. I poured the coffee first. Hard conversations go better with something warm in every hand. Thank you both for coming, I said, and I set the leather folder on the table between us, squared to the edge, the way I've set 1,000 folders in front of 1,000 tenants. You've had a plan for the family's properties. I've heard it in pieces. At my birthday, on the phone, from a realtor, and from a 9-year-old after 8 p.m. This morning, we're going to hear it all at once, out loud from the paper. Marisol is here because in this family, as of today, we're going back to writing things down. Vanessa smiled the smile she uses on inspectors. Rosalind, if this is about the party, the boxes were Craig's idea of a joke. We never meant. The boxes were wrapped, sweetheart, I said gently. Nobody wraps a joke. Coffee? I opened the folder. Let's start with where everyone thinks they live. I slid the first document across to my son. Craig, read me the top line of this, please. Out loud, honey. He picked it up like it might be a report card. Warranty deed. 41 Birchwood Lane. His eyes moved, stopped, moved again, slower. Cedar Gate Properties, LLC. He looked up. Right, the company, Dad's company. Second page, sole member. He turned the page, and I watched my 42-year-old son read my name, alone, on the line he had spent 6 years assuming held his. Rosalind Mercer. He said it quietly, like a password that wasn't working. Just you? I thought, when Dad died, I thought. You thought? I agreed. Everyone thought. Thinking was free, so the family bought a lot of it. Your father's share came to me, Craig. All of it. The company that owns the house you live in is me, wearing a business name. Which brings us to this, and I slid the lease across the table, flagged with its one green tab. Do you know what this is? He looked at it a long moment. It's the thing I signed when we moved in. It's the thing you signed and never read. I said, no heat in it at all. 11 pages, your initials on everyone. I'd like you to read page 6 now, please. Just the highlighted clause, out loud, so your wife can hear it too, because I don't believe she's ever heard it either. My son read his own lease out loud at my kitchen table, 6 years late. Below market family accommodation. Revisable at owner's discretion. No right of purchase, no equity, nothing inheritable. Month to month. These past 5 years. Terminable by me. With 60 days notice. The kitchen got very quiet. Vanessa had stopped smiling somewhere around no equity. That's not, she started, and her voice had a new pitch in it. Harold told us that house was Craig's. He said family rate. He said it was Craig's house. Everyone knows. Harold said family rate, and Harold witnessed this lease. I said, and I turned page 11 around to face her and pointed, one finger at my husband's signature. There, that's Harold, telling you exactly what he meant, in the only language that doesn't decay. He loved you both. He also wrote it down. Those were never different things. Craig was staring at his father's signature, and I watched something in his face come apart and start rebuilding itself as something else. I'd seen the look once before, the day he watched Harold's casket lowered and understood, finally, that some things don't circle back around. Now, I said, the arithmetic, and I laid the ledger on top. 1 page, 72 months, market rent minus 400, year by year in columns any child could follow, down to the figure at the bottom right, which I let them read for themselves. $118,400. That, I said, is what covering the costs actually cost. Not billed to you, given to you. $118,000 and change of your parents' rent money, one quiet month at a time for 6 years. It was a gift, and we never mentioned it, because a mentioned gift starts to smell like a leash, and we didn't want you on one. I folded my hands. But 9 days ago, at my birthday, you handed me boxes and a brochure, and your wife ordered market comps on my home from a realtor who happens to love me. So the era of unmentioned things is over. As of this morning, everything in this family gets mentioned. You had no right to order comps on my house, Vanessa. Level, not unkind. It isn't listing. It isn't staging. It isn't yours by fall or ever. My home goes into my trust, and my trust is none of your business while I'm alive, and Miriam Katz sends her regards. I set the Silver Meadows brochure down next, squared it to the table edge, and slid it to her side. This is yours. It's a lovely facility. Anyone at this table is free to tour it. I'll be at my sewing machine. Vanessa did what people do when paper closes every exit. She went for the feelings. It wasn't fair. She'd only meant to help. No one ever told her, and here it came, the sentence I'd been waiting 9 days for. You can't hold us to some technicality Craig signed at a football game. He didn't even read it. Sweetheart, I said, and I meant the word, which made it worse. You're at a table with a property manager, an office notary, and 11 pages of your own family's ink. He didn't read it. Isn't the defense you think it is. It's the whole confession. This family has been not reading things for 6 years. Leases, kindnesses, me. That ends at this table. And then I looked at my son, because everything until now had been the appetizer, and he knew it. Craig, 2 envelopes. I took them from the folder and set them side by side in front of him. A and B, green ink. Envelope A is a new lease on Birchwood Lane. Market rate is $2,300. Facet face. Yours says $1,080. A 20% family discount, because you are my family, and this family is done confusing love with silence. 12-month term. Both spouses sign. First payment the 1st of next month. Envelope B is a 60-day notice, dated today, signed by me, with every fee waived and the moving truck on Cedar Gate's account. No anger in it. People are allowed to want a different arrangement than the one they've been given. But then, they move toward it on their own money. If Birchwood isn't worth its rent to you, hand me back hook number 7 and go find what is. You choose, right now, at this table, with your wife watching and Marisol's stamp warm. The one thing that is no longer on the menu, son, is the 3rd envelope, the invisible one you've been living in for 6 years, where your mother quietly pays for your life and gets measured for a 1-bedroom as a thank you. My son looked at the envelopes, then at his father's signature on the old lease, then at his wife. And this was the moment, friends. This was the whole 9 days. Vanessa drew breath to manage him, the way she'd managed the party and the comps and the fabric swatches. And Craig, my floater, my initialer, put up one hand, not at me, at her. Van, don't. His voice wasn't hard. It was worse than hard. It was awake. She's been paying for our house since the day we moved in. $2,000 a month for 6 years, and I let you book her a tour. I let you measure her sewing room while she carried our coffee. His voice cracked on the next part. Dad witnessed it. He put his name under mine like a guardrail, because he knew I'd never read it. He knew exactly who I was, and he loved me anyway. And I repaid that by handing his wife moving boxes at her birthday party. He turned to me, and my 42-year-old son looked 9 again. Mom, I don't want envelope B, and I don't deserve how easy envelope A is. Deserving's not the business we're in, sweetheart, I said. Signing is. He signed. Both of them signed. Vanessa last, jaw tight, in silence you could have upholstered furniture with. And when Craig reached the signature line, I did the thing I'd promised myself 9 days of quiet for. I handed him the green Waterman, Harold's pen, the pen that has signed every lease Cedar Gate has ever made. Your father signed your first lease with this, I said. You'll sign your real one the same way. Marisol stamped it, sealed it, dated it. The happiest I have ever seen a notary look. And my son's house became, for the first time in 6 years, honestly his. Rented, in writing, at a rate he pays himself, from a mother he can finally see. There was one more moment at that table, and it's the one I'd keep if I could only keep one. While Marisol was pressing her seal into the last page, Craig pulled the ledger back toward himself, the one-pager, the $118,400, and he sat with it, and I watched him do arithmetic no calculator helps with. Then he said, quietly, not looking up, Mom, do you want it back? Because I'll figure out a way. It might take me the rest of my life, but I'll... Craig! I put my hand flat on the ledger, over the number. Look at me. It was a gift. Gifts don't invoice. Your father and I decided that number month by month, with our eyes open, because giving it to you made us happy. And I would do every dollar of it again. I slid the page away from him. That paper exists for one reason only, so that nobody in this family ever again mistakes what was given for what was owed. The debt isn't money, son. It never was. The debt is that when somebody quietly holds the floor under your life for 6 years, you don't hand her moving boxes. You call her on Sundays. You read what she gives you to sign. And when your wife starts measuring her rooms, I let that hang exactly as long as it needed to. You say the word don't before I have to. He nodded. He couldn't talk. That was all right. Some receipts you sign with your face. And Vanessa, I give her this, because fair is fair, and I promised you the truth over the revenge. Vanessa reached over, picked up her fabric swatches off my counter, and put them in her purse, all the way in. Then she said the first fully honest sentence I'd heard from her in 6 years. I'm going to need a while to stop being angry about this, but the sewing room is yours, Rosalind. It was always yours. I knew it when I was measuring it. She paused at the door. Nobody's ever held a floor under my life. I didn't recognize what I was looking at. I know, sweetheart. That's the saddest sentence in this whole story, and it isn't even mine. Then I cut the coffee cake, because in my family, paper first, cake after. Harold's rule. It holds. Now for the accounting. Every column gets its total around here, because I keep books for a living, and I don't leave rows blank. The family group text healed itself without one word from me, exactly the way I'd predicted. Marisol notarized at 9:40 on a Tuesday. By Thursday, 19 relatives knew, through the same channels that had carried Craig's house for 6 years, that the Birchwood Colonial belonged to Rosalind, that it always had, that there was a signed lease, that there had always been one, and that the transition was off because it had never actually been on. Nobody apologized, because families don't apologize. They recalibrate. The casserole lady started calling me again like nothing happened. Dee enjoyed every minute of it, and I let her, because sisters are owed their seasons of triumph. And I answered Mom M only once, at Thanksgiving, when a cousin too far from the blast radius to know better asked brightly how I was settling in at the new place. I said, I've decided to stay on at Maple Street. The landlady's reasonable. She and I go way back. It took the table 4 full seconds. Emma laughed first. That child is going places. Craig pays his rent. First of the month, auto pay. $1,880. Not one day late in the 8 months since. And I know because Cedar Gate's bookkeeping is me. The first payment came with a note, my son's handwriting, 4 words. I read it, twice. He meant the lease. I framed the note. It hangs in my hallway office over the key cabinet, and I look at it more often than I look at some photographs. But here's the entry in Craig's column I didn't see coming. About a month after the kitchen table, he showed up on a Saturday, alone, no swatches, and asked if he could ride along on my inspection rounds. I want to see what $400 a month was actually buying all those years, is how he put it. So now my son spends 1 Saturday a month learning the family business from the ground down. Furnaces, gutters, the tenant in Unit 12 who pays late but shovels every sidewalk on the block, the whole human arithmetic of it. Last month, he caught a water heater about to let go in the Fenwick duplex. Heard it the way his father used to hear them. I didn't say anything. My face said it. He grinned like he was 10. He reads everything now, by the way. Everything. Watching that man study a cereal box is one of the enduring joys of my 70s. Vanessa. You want to know about Vanessa, and I'm going to tell you the truth, which is more complicated than the revenge and better than it. She was furious for about 6 weeks. Polite furious, holiday card furious, the kind where every "so glad we cleared the air" has a paper cut in it. The comp's embarrassment stung. Priya, on my quiet instruction, had been wonderful at her job right up until the moment the owner declined. The curtain swatches went home in her purse and were not spoken of. Then, in the spring, she came to my door on a Tuesday with a folder of her own. Shaking a little. Her craft business, and I'll be honest, I had always filed it under hobbies with a hashtag, had gotten an offer for a real retail stall at the Mill Market downtown, her first commercial lease. 14 pages, and every soul she'd have ordinarily asked, her mother, her friends, the internet, had told her 14 different things. You're the only person I know, she said at my kitchen table in the exact chair, who actually reads these. So I read it, with Harold's pen in the margins, the way I read everything, and it needed reading, friends. There was a personal guarantee in Section 9 that would have curdled your coffee. We negotiated it out together. She got the stall. She got it on terms that won't eat her if the business wobbles. And when she signed the final draft, right there in my kitchen, she looked up at me and said the only real apology I ever got or needed. Nobody ever taught me the paper was there to protect me too. I thought it was just what people like you used against people like me. People like you. There it was, the whole cold country she grew up in, where paper only ever arrived as a weapon, and everything soft had to be grabbed before somebody stronger renamed it. I'm not excusing my daughter-in-law to you. She measured my sewing room while I carried her coffee, and we both know it. But I understand her now, and she is learning, at 40, at my table, one clause at a time, what Harold taught me at 34, that writing things down is not the opposite of love, it's the preservative. Her stall does well. She sells, of all things on God's green earth, custom curtains. I sew some of the hems. We don't talk about the irony. Her mother visits the stall and calls it Vanessa's little venture, and Vanessa has started answering, "It's a business, Mom. I have a lease." Progress comes in strange envelopes. Emma has a standing Sunday lesson at my mother's Singer in the sewing room, where the light lands at 2 in the afternoon. She's piecing her first quilt. Crooked, glorious, all the blues she could find. She still says the room has my smell in it. As long as that child is in this world, that room will never be a craft nook, and we both know that too. The moving boxes never left my house. I kept all 6. 5 of them live in the sewing room closet holding fabric, sorted by color, the most useful gift anyone gave me that birthday. The 6th one I flattened and slid behind the hallway cabinet, with the bow still on it. My version of the $40 sticker, if you watched my last story. Some receipts you keep where you can feel them. And the glove box brochure. I told you it would come back. On the 2nd Thursday of every month, I drive to Silver Meadows and play bridge with Dot Kowalczyk. We put Wheel of Fortune on mute in the community room and solve the puzzles faster than the contestants, which Dot calls cardio and her card sharks. And I am slowly winning back my dignity one rubber at a time, because those women are assassins. Someday, on my legs, with my pen, a 1-bedroom with good water pressure and a bridge table full of court clerks might be exactly the right next lease for me. If that day comes, I will sign it myself, in green ink, and it will be nobody's plan but mine. That's not stubbornness, friends. That's just the difference between being moved and moving, which leaves the wish I promised. Standing at that cake, 70 years old, with the boxes shining and 14 faces waiting, and the 7 and the 0 burning down toward the frosting, here is what I wished, word for word, the way you only wish when something in you already knows. Let me find out the truth about my family, while I still have the strength to do something about it. Not, let them be sorry. Not, let me win. Let me know who was steering, who was floating, who was 9 years old and already braver than all of us, and let me still be strong enough to act on the answer. Most women my age get that truth too late, when the pen is already in somebody else's hand and every objection has been pre-labeled a symptom. I got mine at 70, with my files in order and a notary on payroll. The wish came true in 9 days. Best birthday present I ever got. And I gave it to myself, which, I've come to believe, is how the important ones usually arrive. So here's the one thing I'd wish into your coat pocket. If this story reached you in time, the people who love you will tell stories about your life, where you should live, what you still need, what's too much for you now. Most of them mean well. Some of them mean business, and you cannot tell the difference by listening, because both kinds sound exactly like concern. You can only tell by the paperwork. So here is your homework, from a woman who reads leases in bed. Know whose name is on everything you're standing on, your home, your accounts, your plans, and make sure the people writing stories about your future have seen the documents. Not to threaten anybody, just so the family fiction never drifts so far from the family paper that somebody wraps your life in a bow and hands it to you at your own party. Paper doesn't mind being read, friends. It waits its whole life for it. That's my story. One gift bow, one unread lease, and one very specific birthday wish that came true in 9 days. If it reminded you to reread something you signed, or to finally write down something you've been loving on a handshake, do it today, not someday. Tell me below. Has your family ever planned your life without asking you first? I answer from the sewing room, usually with tea. Subscribe for the next Quiet Woman's Ledger. Good night from Maple Street.